Hey guys, we're Blending95, recording live from the local county prison cell. I'm recording on a new device, but aside from that, just to test it out, this fight is something I pushed back a little bit to. I wanted to move the Obi-Wan versus Uther fight up just in case, like I said in the last video. So this one, I was gonna do, and then I put it back. So I'm gonna do it now. It is Punisher, the Punisher, Frank Castle, from Marvel versus Rorschach from Watchmen. I guess now it's kind of DC, but I wouldn't really consider this a Marvel DC fight necessarily. Um, so this is gonna be not a very like out there fight. This is gonna be a very maintained two human characters, no superhuman abilities, borderline superhuman achievements, but not really like no superhuman qualities to these characters. Um so anyway, Frank Castle um served originally was a Vietnam vet, now he's like a Desert Storm vet or something like that. Um so his backstory's been changed recently, but he's a many year veteran in, I believe it was the Marine Corps, and in some incarnations is he was part of the mob in some incarnate, but in most cases, yeah, his family is victimized by the mob and ends up with his family killed, and then he kind of goes insane and then dedicates his entire life to ruthlessly murdering criminals. Um, he generally carries weapons with him on a mission to mission basis, so in something like Death Battle, it would be a little hard to do a fight like this where a character comes in and with like all of its equipment. So it would probably be something like carry standard weaponry, like just pistols, stuff like that. um Aside from that, he's an incredibly well-trained hand-to-hand combatant. He's considered one of the most dangerous men in the Marvel universe. um I think there was some like weird factoid, like Nick Fury specifically said, like, don't interfere with, like, he's like, Shield, don't interfere with Castle's like mission, like, don't or something funny like that, like it was like they were gonna like stop him, and then Fury's like, no, 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 put in his file, do not interfere, or something like that. It was something funny. um the clothes that he wears actually are bulletproof, not bulletproof, but like body armor, like bullet protected, ballistic protected. Um, and he's also a surprisingly efficient tactician for somebody who's so just completely dedicated and obsessed with killing criminals. He like he's I've read things where he's planned things out like months and months in advance to like have criminals be at specific locations so he can do this, or it's like he knew that somebody was going to take a trip on this specific day, so he ends up with he's a very good planner. um Moving on to Rorschach, kind of the same situation where except Rorschach was always a vigilante, and one day he just decides, no, I'm gonna start taking lives instead of just letting the people live. Um, decide, feeling that criminals are like having both of these characters in many of their incarnations have a very black and white mentality, which makes the color scheme fitting. Um, I mean, other than a grappling hook, Rorschach doesn't carry any weaponry with him. They're both kind of experts of improvised weaponry. Um, Rorschach, I would say, might be the more unstable of the two, actually having developed like a split, like a separate personality. like disassociating himself with his own identity and saying like I am no longer myself. I am Rorschach, and you know, like the mask is his real face, and his face is the mask. You know, that sort of thing. Um, and of course, Castle has dealt with going into the analysis here. Frank has the edge in a lot of ways. Now, this is again, there aren't any superhuman components to this fight, so it's not like, and there's not a lot of like super technology. But Castle just has like the edge in pretty much every way. He's got, I would say he's in physically better shape. Being in peak human capability, I'd say, experience wise, all that, and training wise and all of that, I'd say he's definitely got the advantage being, a soldier for, I think it's like 20 years or some 20 or 30 years in the modern incarnation. Um, Whereas Rorschach just kind of, his only experience is in being a vigilante, whereas Castle's been trained to fight and kill. Um, I mean, if they're both coming in unarmed, that's one thing, but if you show Castle coming in with like, a gun, whereas Rorschach isn't, that's kind of unfair. So it really depends on I feel like both these characters would be like, I feel like both these characters would end up being not unarmed, but like they'd be in a place where they could access weaponry. Because, like I said, they're both really good at improvising weaponry. I mean, I've seen, Frank use a car battery to electrocute somebody to death, like rip it out of the car and just attach it to them. I've seen him use chains from like bicycles to like cut off people's limbs. And I've seen Rorschach make a flamethrower out of, a match and a, what was it, like a bottle of hairspray or something. It's a James Bond situation. Um, but overall, yeah, I think Frank wins this. I think I was gonna do this fight. I thought I did actually. I had to look back and find out I didn't do it. I thought I was gonna do this fight, like several years ago, and one of the reasons was that I couldn't really find a legitimate like I couldn't find anything like to analyze, and that's kind of being an issue right now. Is that both these characters without preparation and without the context of their environment, like against each other, they're both just very basic people. Um, but yeah, I think Frank definitely wins, and I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just the fact that it's Death Battle's job to make the analysis more interesting and to make the fight more interesting. When you're dealing with characters like that, because from an analysis standpoint of going back and forth between them, it's not very like there's not a lot of content here. But looking at the characters individually, you can make them seem really really cool, and then you can kind of make a fight that actually is worth watching. Like the Nightwing Daredevil, though. I gotta say, I am not a fan of the live action fights. I think I said this when it happened, but like I'm not I don't really like the idea of doing live action, especially when it comes to like, I mean, like if they're like movie characters or something, that's one thing, but like when it comes to like comic book characters and video game characters and stuff like that, doing live action, eh, you're never gonna portray the character to its. I mean, you have to. This is a rant for another day, but like it just it seems so lackluster compared to what the impossible things that these characters do, even though they're human characters. The impossible things that they do, like in their actual source material. So um that's that. So I hope if they do this, it would be like a 3D fight and not a live action fight. But they'd probably do a live action fight, to be honest. Anyway, Yeah, I think Punisher is gonna win or would win in this fight, and glad I got this one out of the way. Purple Engine 95. See ya.